Recording. Ready.
Great, thanks. Welcome everyone to the February 19th, 2026 meeting of the Housing and Homelessness Committee. My name is Alec Militic and I am the chair of the committee. Tonight we are joined by Community Coordinator Brian Lafferty. The meeting is called to order at 6:33 p.m. Members of the public who are attending virtually, you may raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. Members of the public who are here in person, you may raise any questions that you have by raising your hand. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. We will need a volunteer to take minutes tonight. If you are able to take minutes, please let us know. I can do so. I don't think I've taken minutes for the housing committee yet this year, so. We will now take attendance by roll call. Brian will conduct the roll call.
Thanks, Alec. Committee members, I'll call your name. When your name is called, please say present. I'll announce if there is quorum. Kyle Athide. Oh, don't see Kyle. Liz Byrne. I know she was joining us virtually, but I don't see her yet. Eric Goldberg can't be with us this evening. Sandra Leptoff.
Here.
Thank you. Alec Militant.
Present.
Thank you. Rich News.
Present.
Here. Steve Perez.
Present.
Thank you. Will Perry. Ethan. James Vera. I don't see him either. Jerry Weinstein. Weinstein. He's present. Thank you. Shuya Zhao.
Present.
Thank you. Okay. We're at 6 of 11 present. We have a quorum.
Great. Thank you, Brian. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, please raise your hand. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from the January 20th, 2026 meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hand. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the January 20th, 2026 meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB6 website. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe the following ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members who are here in person, if you have a question about committee business or we wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and I will identify you so you may speak. Committee members unable to attend in person, if you have a question about committee business, you may raise your hand through Zoom and I will identify you so you may speak. All committee members, it is extremely important that only one person speak at a time so that members of the public watching at home can understand what is being said by each committee member. The chat function for committee members present via Zoom, which I don't think we have any tonight, should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties that you are having or to state in writing information that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. So with that, we can hop into the agenda this evening. And I'm very excited to talk and learn more about the housing data research that members of this committee have taken on. So with that, I will pass it to Sandra and Shreya and Stephen, who are here this evening and who have done some really tremendous work, guys. To get some great details and information.
I just have to afford. Amazing, or that's like I say, it's amazing.
And
Yeah.
incredibly speedy too.
Oh my
You
God.
guys did this in what, like a month, less than a month? It's awesome.
They don't sleep enough. Or they're on drugs, but take that. No, I'm sorry. But it really has been amazing. I've loved sort of I've been the observer on the process, but I just think you, and the coordination has been, worked so well.
Mhm.
So, you know, all of the above, I just give you so much credit for what you've done and where you've sort of moved us in a very short period. That's it. That's it, I'm done with crazy. I just wanna, the only thing I'm gonna really put in it, but I want to go back to it later, is that this study is really about, um, documenting the nature of affordable housing in our community. So we have all of those specific categories, and in terms of both protecting what exists and then becoming advocates for what's in moving forward. So that's the frame we, and I know we talked about last time, we focus on rent stabilization because that is the largest category and quite significant. Yeah, and Steve really went to town or went to work on, I guess, using the DAP, and maybe, and I'm gonna ask you guys to, you know, to lead us through what you were doing. I know you have also have slides, and maybe just briefly talk about the DAP as the resource, how you were using it, and what you found. Okay?
Okay, and if Brian could share the website and I shared with you earlier, and so right now we can go to the rent stabilized RGB's website first.
Sure.
So as Sandra said, several weeks ago, our housing research team had a meeting, and after the discussion, we decided to go from the we decided to begin by collecting data on rent stabilized units and subsidized units in our district. And on the rent guidelines board's website, which is this one, you can see the screen, and can you go up? Go up, all the way up. Yes, you can see that on RGB's website, they have a special page for the rent stabilized building list. And I really recommend everyone take a look at this page as it provides lots of very useful information. And when you go down, you can see that they have a PDF version of the rent stabilized building listings for each borough. You can go down, you can see Manhattan. Go down. You still go, yes, here, you see, they have the PDF listing for each borough, but the problem here is that they only show the buildings with rent stabilized units, and not every unit in these buildings are rent stabilized. So
They only show the buildings, not the units.
yes, they show the buildings, but they didn't show, they didn't show the units. So if we want to know the number of the stabilized units, we need more detailed data resources. And then also on this website, and can we go back? And maybe go up a little bit more, or yes, here, you can see that I found that the RGB website has a hyperlink to ANHD's DAB portal, yeah, which is this link. And it is a very comprehensive portal, and which aggregates information from multiple sources regarding buildings, and which include rent stabilized units, HPD violations, complaints, and so much more. And on this portal, the good, can you go up? The good thing is that you can search by building, and you can also search by district. So if we search by district and you can click community district and you can click community board 6. And then you can go to this side, and the good thing is that you can look at the right part, and they provide both GIS map and they also provide the Excel data. And so we can use the Excel table to do more research. And
Could you just make that map a little bit larger so people can see how, well, it's incredible amount of information just on the map itself.
I can. One minute and
Right.
and
So they're actually showing all the buildings with rent stable.
the
so you
run,
just-
you
and then
can click the run stabilized one.
Mhm.
You see?
Right.
And
Oh, wow.
this is. it
Right, and then
shows
just
the-
make it a lot, if you can enlarge a little bit, you can see the incredible detail that.
Yeah.
It's
Yes,
amazing, right?
and if you want to know the exact number of the amount of run stabilized units in this building, and you can go to the table. And then you can see that they show the run stabilized units in this building.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, and when you also like, can you go up?
If you click on one of them, right, then you can show them all the, or, well, do it your way.
But it
Can
also
you-
has the total number of units, and then you can calculate.
Well, they actually show you it's, and how it declines or increases, but
Over
you
time.
have your own way of presenting it, so.
Yes, and also, if you click the question mark here, can we go up a little, if you click the second one? The second one here, and this tells you their data, the raw data resources and the data sources, and then here you
What-
can, you
What did you
can,
just click on?
you can go back, go
one of
back
those
to
links.
the DP portal, and you click this question mark. And then they have the
Gotcha.
data source. And then this one provides the historical data for all the rent stabilized units in New York, and it is dating from 2007. And then, and you can play with this Excel table, and Steve did the cleaning work for this table, and he will introduce more when it's his time. And for the, so this is the run stabilized data sources, and if you go back to the DAP again. This one, and so we know the run stabilized one, and you can use the number here.
Alright.
And if you want to use the historical data, and you go to the raw data, and then we can go to the subsidized housing here. And also, what you need to be aware is that this, and then also this unit's number, can you go to this one, the rent stabilized one? And this
They
unit shows the whole apartment units in these buildings with rent stabilized units. And this is not the exact rent stabilized units. This is the
Gotcha.
whole units. So you really need to use the number here, and you download the table and you summarize the number here.
I understand. So it's saying that of the 777 properties, there's a total of 61,000 units. And then you
Yes.
need to determine what number of stabilized units from that.
It's misleading. When I
Yeah.
first sent the data around, I did it wrong.
Because I saw
because
that.
You look at that, and you said, oh,
Yeah.
you look like you're selecting rent stabilized.
Right.
And it's showing you the number of units, so you just assume. But then when you look at the table, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Right,
No,
right,
it's all the
Yes.
units. Yeah.
Is that the 61,000 of all the units, or?
That- Total units in
With-
those,
within-
with that might have a stabilized,
Right, so it's basically all the units.
but it doesn't mean that they're all rent stable.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
of course. So-
And then you go to the subsidized the housing. This one, and then you can go to the map.
And that's the same thing too, right? 200, what is that, 23,000?
Different number.
Yes, and
Why would they be different if they're all the buildings? If the first one was 61,000 as
In
well.
each category.
Well, no, is that, you mean, is the total number of units in which there might be, in which is at least one rent stabilized? apartment? Is that how that's working? Okay, thank you.
And so I guess this is saying that there are some buildings that have rent stabilized units that don't have subsidized units, right? Is that the
Yes.
conclusion that we can reach?
Yes, and also, this one, actually, this data set is not really good, because when you click the table here, and it is exactly the same as the last one, and this part doesn't provide more details. And if you want more detail, you need to click here, this question mark. You click this one.
Gotta go straight to
Yes,
the
and
stores.
here, you need to go to this platform. This is New York, NYU Furman Center's core data. And you need to go to, enter here. You need to go to this platform to determine, you can also, we can do it later, but, you can, drag the map a little bit down, and, we can just select one building in our district. And then you want to, maybe not slide down, you want to click another one. Yes, and go down. And here they provide you with the financial condition information and the tax information. And then you determine from here what kind of subsidized building it is. And also Steve did the amazing work to use that table and then search it from this platform to make that amazing tables.
Wow.
And and Steve can introduce more about our preliminary findings and how he processed those data.
Wow.
Any questions about that?
I actually do have questions.
But I'll wait.
Are you gonna show them how you can click on each one, on the rent stabilized, you can click on each building that has rent stables and find out how it changes between 2007 and
Yeah,
2017?
so
When are you gonna do that?
you, if you want to do the historical data, you need
Yeah.
to go to that big table.
Right.
You remember I click the question mark and then it goes, it leads you to another website, and it provides all the original information, the original raw data. Yes, the second link there, and it is a very big Excel, and it has information, the rent stabilized units information dating back to 2007, and they have each year, and you need to clean up that table, and then you summarize the rent stabilized units in different years.
Well, and they do it for each building, just that list, right? If you do it on.
Yeah, she means the web interface. If you just click on the building, you can look at it and it will show you every year.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
exactly,
yeah.
and it's just a very easy, quick way.
Oh, yes,
to,
yes.
If you wanna look at a specific building, you know, it'll just,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Right,
if
that's
you
what I
want
got for.
here, you go back to this DAP portal here, this
Mhm.
one. So, can we, go back to this map? And, we choose one building and whatever it is. And, yes, view property. And here you have you see the rent stabilized information here, and it tells you the stabilized units in each year, and it is based on the big table I just mentioned, but it also shows the condition for each building here on this page.
So where's historical data prior to 2007?
I have no idea, that's a question.
Beta has that data. And I don't know why Beta stopped doing that, but they did.
I wonder if the reporting for some of these buildings was different, 20+ years ago. Or if they just had different ways of recording.
The other.
For the most part, what
Is-
Steve said earlier about the community board is true of housing. It is basically voluntary as far as listing what I've discovered.
The question I have also, shouldn't it be with the new housing rent stabilization state law that after 2019, there shouldn't be any more rent stabilized apartments, is there? That
Unless it's a sale where they bought somebody out.
I didn't know they could do that. Anyhow, that was my, here it's at least constantly see 2019 and it doesn't change. I was, at least that was my understanding of the law. I don't know if anybody.
I
Okay,
think it is lost before and it is not subjected to some tax incentives, and I think it is just if it's gone, it's gone. And if it has some conflicts between the tax incentives and the rent-stabilized conditions, and maybe they can go back. And this is the status for site.
that's a really interesting one.
Yeah. And Steve will tell you more about.
What was the hardest part about finding this data?
Well, for whatever reason, I know that, RGB has the PDF listing, and, I didn't mean to find this portal, and I just clicked and, for fun, and then I
Oh,
just found it,
interesting.
yeah.
Oh, wow, so you found it almost by accident, really?
That's true. I know that it provides the PDF version, and
Right.
I was planning to clean this table myself and to see what I can find, but I just play with that website and I found that portal by accident.
That's interesting because it goes back to something that you brought up last month, Sandra, about how it's really inaccessible and really difficult to find this information easily. And I've been thinking about that since.
Yeah.
I think that that's really something that we as a committee should think about.
We were thinking of a resolution
I think that's a
about
great idea.
the rent guidelines board data has to be public data.
I,
But they've got the data, we know that.
Yeah.
And there's no justification for keeping it.
I mean, I'd even go as far as to say that all this information should be publicly and easily accessible to a layperson, really.
Yeah. And that RGB's website and that rent stabilized listing website really has lots of information, and I recommend that everyone take a look at
Yeah.
that.
Well, did you notice that there was inconsistencies or maybe like how were the tables that you found structured? Was there some,
It is
like-
not conflicting because
It doesn't,
you,
okay.
yeah, and it used that fake table as the raw data, and it is almost the same, and because it is.
so there is some consistency?
Yeah, it is
Okay.
pretty consistent.
That's good.
I mean, one thing I've been personally curious of because it affects me is that while a friend of mine, Aaron Carr, who has sued larger buildings and collected millions in damages, New York and New Jersey, there is very little to no oversight about small buildings. I'm a 6 unit. And that allows people to really work under the radar. I
Mhm.
think because there are not the resources, you don't have the same return on investment that if you're helping 100 tenants versus 2 here, 1 here, 3 here. When I saw the discrepancies between the way it was sorted, 100+ units and 3 stabilized, my antenna is like, no, there's probably 15 in that building.
Sure.
And they're not registering them.
Well, one of the difficulties just with how this data gets collected, it is the landlord confesses to his sins, not yet supposed to say how many apartments there are. But then Just Fix then they go through the tax records to get what they then assume on the number of rent stabilized. It's pretty confusing. And then what came up with us, and you'll get to it, Steve, is that in that rent stabilized, because suddenly buildings which had 5 rent stabilized suddenly have 12, and you think, what, they grew rent stabilized apartments? But then we figured out, they put the 421A and the J51s in there. So actually going through the data gets to be quite a challenge, and I think
Interesting.
at least we got to that and then how do we approach it? So all of this is
Right.
pretty,
Hmm.
pretty dense.
I mean,
And that's,
that's one of the rare good use cases for an AI. If you trained it with all of the timelines and the laws and asked it, why is this discrepancy?
Mhm.
Why might have this gone from 5 to 7 to 10 to 2 to 5? Right? Because you'd save hours. You'd need to double check everything, but at least you'd have connection with what's gone on over these last decades.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that the data does come from the Department of Finance property records, so I'm not sure that it's not just relying on the landlords to somehow report
Well,
this. It's pulling some of that information directly from I mean, fine, maybe they're tax evaders that they should be going to jail, right? But like, they're not just randomly relying on someone's like filling out a survey to figure out how many units, what kind of,
I think,
so.
I'm not here to dispute it, but I don't think that there's a complete marriage. There's too much siloing.
And the
Because-
question would be, why would just fix, then specialize them in terms of tax records, if in fact it was accessible? It's just a question. I don't think we need to get into it at this point.
Well,
But there are too many questions in this one.
yeah, I think maybe it is from DHCR, because the only way for you to find if your unit is a rent stabilized unit is to send a request to DHCR, and then they will tell you, and you can also search on DHCR's website to see if your unit is rent stabilized. So maybe this comprehensive listing is provided by them and to show up on RJB's website. I'm not sure about.
So the landlord is not obligated to tell a prospective tenant the status of of an apartment, right? If they have a rent regulated
I think
apartment.
as of January 2026, they are. In fact, I was gonna ask, they're supposed to post it on buildings now.
Are they?
And I
Okay.
haven't seen it anywhere anecdotally as
Yeah, but you
But
really.
unfortunately, yeah,
So-
but we're not gonna have that data for.
But I
Probably
love,
a year and a
I
half.
love reaching out even in the newsletter to ask if anyone has had a sign on the facing of their building confirming that they have stabilized units.
Interesting.
That there's gonna be a listing of all the rent stabilized units, or a listing of available rent stabilized units? That's
Um,
in 2026.
As of the new administration, the guidance was that if there was a stabilized unit, one or more in a building, it should be posted on the apartment building itself. Probably where they have when you enter the lobby.
Like a
on the
common area.
printer.
That's
Yeah.
a little weird.
Yeah.
Actually, I wouldn't, it is.
No,
but it's
no,
sort of-
kind of
Well,
figuring
yeah.
it is about so many people not being properly informed. So I haven't seen whether or not that is gone from de jure to de facto.
And the other part is there a listing someplace of available rent stabilized apartments? Does anybody know that? Because I try to find where that would be. It seems like such an obvious obligation.
Seems like another project on her.
Dear God.
Well, I agree, because the lottery seems to be piecemeal. That you're like waiting for something to like appear on the horizon rather than working from, like when I lived in Cambridge, that was the case. That there was a list and you could add,
Well, that's another.
yeah.
And anyway, we could keep going on, but I wanna turn to Steve to talk about this a little bit more. So Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, I mean, so the reason why it's kind of very preliminary, that's why we don't have like a slideshow to show with like all the final numbers, because also the numbers are a little tricky and the data sets are a little bit tricky.
Okay.
When I realized as I was working more in them, you realize they're not quite set up correctly or they're missing information. And there are discrepancies between what the Furman Center has and what the DAP portal has. So there was kind of like, oh, why is this different than, there was a lot of cleaning that had to happen. And so I'm sort of 90% confident with the numbers that we have, but like if we were gonna, I wouldn't publish an academic paper without going back and like really redoing the work, but for the community board's purposes, it's accurate, so it's not, I would say. But anyway, so basically what happened was there were 3 different data sets, as Shua pointed out there. So one comes from the DAP portal. And if you, that DAP portal that she shows the website of, if you download the data set directly from there, it's just current.
Okay.
It doesn't have all the historical. That's why you had to go to that other thing. But I used the one that SEMA had.
That's the same thing. I
Okay,
checked that,
you
that's
checked-
the same thing.
So here's the problem though, that only goes to 2017. It's not all the way to 2025, at least from what I can see.
2007,
No, from 2007 to 2017,
yeah,
doesn't go to
Doesn't go.
2025.
yes, I found that.
So but I was like, oh, but this is great, because what we want, we know what we have today, I can just download it.
Right.
I had that data, and then I had this historical one that only went from 2007 to 2017. So then I had to match the two different data
Oh,
sets,
Interesting.
and you have a unique code, which is the building block
The BBL.
BBL
yeah,
code. So I used that to match
Right.
the two data sets. Here's another problem. When you look at the DAP portal data and you download that, if there was a new building that came online with rent, they didn't code, they left the community district field blank. So when I first filtered it, I was like, okay, I just want CB6, right? So I filtered that and I took all of that and I started doing all the data. So then I went back and I was like, wait a minute, why are there some blank cells? And then I realized the address is in our district, but it didn't come out in my data set. So then I had to go through the entire thing and and enter the correct community district I actually didn't fill it. There weren't that many new buildings. So I actually just did them all for the whole city.
Gotcha.
So now the data set we have has them all, so you could actually filter by community district and you will get the properties in your district, not, missing ones that were not there. Then the other problem with the data sets was the DAP portal will tell you that it's a subsidized building, but they don't tell you what subsidies. So, and I didn't realize there's like 25 different subsidies that a building can have or more. And the other problem is that the Furman Center data does tell you what the specific subsidies are, but buildings can have multiple subsidies. So how do you you can't just pick one, so then you have to do another match between that data set on the BBL numbers and to create unique BBLs, because it repeats, the Furman Center data will repeat a building 7 times and tell you it has 421A, and it has inclusionary housing, and it has this.
Oh, interesting.
So then
wow.
it was the little trick, but the thing is, we don't have that many buildings with subsidies in CB6. So I just kind of did a match and then kind of did it by hand mostly to fill in subsidy 1, subsidy 2, subsidy 3, subsidy 4.
So did you search it one by one and then fill it on the Excel?
Yeah, because there weren't that many, so yeah, it took me some time, but for me to create the program to actually, it just wasn't worth it, given how many, there's like 80 buildings, right? So it wasn't worth it. I mean, if you're gonna do a whole city, I would create a Python program that would do that, but anyway, so that was kind of what we did. So if you go to which one is this? Is this the subsidy table?
Yeah.
Isn't there I think there's another sheet in there. No. Oh, no, I think maybe I just included the raw data. But anyway, yeah, I did some pivot tables off of this. So I have the numbers, and those are the numbers that I sent in the table via email to all of you who received the information. But basically, we can show what type of subsidized housing, but before I did more analysis, I want to know, what does the committee think is the most important subsidies? Because right now, I have LIHTC 4%, I have 421A, I have J51, I have project-based Section 8. And then we have Storytown, which was a subsidy too, and that has federal programs and all of that money that went into that. So the overall picture here is that we had the most subsidized housing of the most prominent subsidized housing we have. Probably no surprise to everyone is Storytown, Peter Cooperville.
Sure.
Like that accounts for half of all of the subsidized housing that's in our district or more. So that's that's a huge chunk of it. And then what we also discovered was that, okay, there's the other problem is that the rent stabilized sheet, what they count as subsidized housing is different than what Furman County counts as subsidized housing. So then you also have to see what are the different discrepancies between those two data sets. And then kind of clean it out, and then
so this is the raw data that we're looking at here.
So
I'm curious how you capture things that maybe city or statewide opportunities. So for example, for older folks, the SRIE program, which is by application. And I think just overrides, I think definitely if you're in stabilized, I don't know if it's probably not market rate, but in any case, that's not driven and at all identified from how the building is zoned, except maybe in the subcategory of stabilized.
You're talking about like individual rent.
That is I don't know if it's a matching subsidy, but it's absolutely a rent freeze cap.
So like you're talking about like
Income and age.
rental subsidies as
Mhm.
opposed to building subsidies.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is not going to capture any of that. This is data tied to the building itself
building.
or the unit itself. So
You combine both, but if it's, I'm a little confused.
he's talking about if the subsidies for the person.
Yeah,
Is there-
right.
That person can live anywhere and it
Well-
could be market rate housing,
Right,
right?
that's-
Yes, but as it's
So-
being applied to the unit, the owner.
Yeah, but how would we know where that person
Yeah.
lives?
Depending on the record keeping, or, I don't know if that's a HPD
Yeah.
program.
I'm not sure.
And it's not tied to the unit, so that person can move with their voucher
Well,
to
A different community.
outside of the district,
Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
I-
It wouldn't matter.
I
No, that's a
think,
good point, yeah. The numbers would fluctuate.
yes, but I think when it is confirmed, it is tied to the unit and then tied to another unit, because it is a percentage based on income and rent. So I'm wondering if anyone is capturing that, if they even know some percentage of the people who are eligible for the program are aware. And then if they are accepted into it, if there is a high rate of fail, whether it's because of any number of reasons. And just map that to many, many, many programs, of course.
I just want to ask two things. When you said that there were a few buildings, inclusionary housing, those are new buildings being put up, is that what you're talking about, that had the however percentage of affordable housing?
Well, yeah, it's just one of the subsidy categories
Right.
called inclusionary housing.
Was it like 11? I thought I counted at some point, or was it like 11 buildings, because it seemed much less than I would have.
Well, I don't have the number, for inclusionary housing in
Yeah, I
our
just
district,
counted from your-
I have rent stabilized total units are 381. That's total units, not buildings.
Right, I was just counting
In our
buildings, and then when it's a mandatory inclusionary, just give the X number.
And some of those are rent stabilized and some of them are not. And that's the
Some of
other,
them- Oh, because they have to be, get zoning, blah, blah,
Yeah.
okay. That's part one. The other one, because as you pointed out, the Peter Cooper becomes the major affordable housing. And you all seem to know that. I didn't know that. I didn't realize. I thought they were rents, or this, straightforward rent stabilized, and then 421A pops up in J51. So there's a history then. I found it very confusing, because I realized they destabilized certain apartments, then suddenly everything is 421 and J.
yeah.
Could you explain? it?
So
This is
let's go
so
back,
important.
let's go to the other spreadsheet, because that one actually shows some of the pivot tables and the calculations. Go to the pivot table page, not the raw data page, it's the tab at the bottom. Yeah, so this shows some of the calculations now we're going back, this is rent stabilized.
Okay.
In our district, and you can see some of the other districts. So the first tells you how many units are rent stabilized versus total units, and then what percent of the total within each district. And then the other one, and that's current, and then it shows the rent stabilized units in 2007. And then the change in rent stabilized units
Wow.
over from 2007 to current.
And where are we? We're the second from the bottom. Right, is it?
Yeah,
six or eight?
the row. But so what it looks like, here's what Sandra was pointing out, because I was like, oh, wow. CB6 has preserved so much more housing than any other district, because we've only lost 12% versus, all the other districts, 40%, 42,
Sure.
But the problem is Storytown. What happened was, there was a big deregulation and all the units got taken out of rent stabilization. And there was a lawsuit by the Tenants Association in 2007, and they forced them to put it back. So it looks like we were growing this giant amount of, but it's actually, no, we're just getting back the ones that were lost. That doesn't, so then if you look below, I pulled out Storytown piece and Peter Cooper, and then not Storytown and Peter Cooper.
Oh, I
And then
see.
you can see we actually lost, if you look at not Storytown, we lost 37% of rent stabilized housing from 2007 to 2025 in our district, which then reflects more or less what was happening in other districts.
That
So-
feels like the headline.
That is, yeah, so, but this kind of just gives you a picture of what that looks like, and also, as Sandra was pointing out, she was looking at the rents in Storytown and was like, how can you have rents at 5,000? So what also happened was, well, you can explain, because you lived there, with how the units, they're not coming back to what they used to be.
Yes, because before 2019, and the city has it is called a vacancy. It has a rule which is called vacancy deregulation, and after this unit becomes vacant, or the rent has reached a certain threshold, and it can be deregulated from the rent stabilized status. And for Stuytown, and there are, so it was built in 1947, and we have lots of long-term residents, and some people have lived there for 40 years, and some people have lived there for their whole life, and some people were born there and are still living there from 1947 or 1948, and we have lots of long-term residents, and the rent for those people are really low, and it can be as low as 2,000 because of rent stabilization and rent control. And for those people, and the rent is good, and they always stay there, and there is no chance for management to raise the rent. But after some people move out, or people may just pass away, and then it becomes vacant, and then the management can do really good renovation work, and then they have the chance to apply for MCI and also the individual apartment improvement fee from the government, and also the Stuytown, the apartments in Stuytown and Peter Cooper Village are pretty spacious, and the smallest one in Stuytown is about 750 square feet, and the smallest one in Peter Cooper Village is 950 square feet. So those apartments are pretty spacious, so they can put lots of money to renovate the units.
And
And then
that
charge a
digressing too
much
much,
higher
that
rate.
was a whole thing where
Yeah.
people, even, marble counters, everything to drive, there's a function of $40,000 increase that puts you over. And it was a whole thing whether or not even those expenditures were
Well,
taken.
I thought that they put a cap on the amount of money that a landlord can invest into,
That is the law of 2019, that,
Right.
yeah, that,
like
that.
15,000 or something, right, or 20,000?
Yes, and that is the current number, but lots of units have already been renovated, or again and again. It really depends on how many rows you have, and if you if before I live here, and someone has lived here for 60 years, and then I moved in, and so I'm the lucky person because management couldn't increase the rent so much.
Right.
But if there are 10 residents, there are lots of rows in that unit, and then you can be the bad lucky person.
Oh, so you're saying that they continue to use this system every
Yes.
time a unit becomes vacant? So
Yeah.
over the course of, if they have 5 different tenants over the course of 5 or 6 years,
Yeah.
they can continue to use that system
Yeah.
Yeah,
to improve,
Yeah.
or maybe even write it off as an improvement,
I mean,
but
it-
justify
It was a
raising the rent.
vehicle for moving things out of stabilization.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
And we had some indifferent public
They can
servants.
increase it by
yeah.
a certain amount.
That's,
Uh,
interesting.
Right.
Wow.
Like, why is this apartment that is $1,000 for 2 bedroom getting a marble?
Sure. Oh,
So
Oh,
I
interesting.
you can also search your apartments rent history from DHCR, and I did it for my apartment, and I found that it was crazy that my unit, the rent of my unit was only 1387 in 2019.
Wow.
And then that person, whoever knows where she is, and then it is a great chance for, and that person has been there no later than 1984,
Mhm.
and she has lived there for more than 40 years. And then it is a great chance for management to have a very comprehensive renovation for my unit. And then for the person living there from 2019, and it goes up to more than 4,000 or 5,000.
Oh.
And after
interesting.
this person moves out, there's another chance for for management to increase a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, and so it really depends
Wow.
on how many people have lived there, in your apartment before you moved in.
How many times the landlord can use that system in order to raise the rent?
That
That's-
actually seems almost impossible to go from 1,300 to 5,000 over a 6-year period. I would.
Well, she's saying that
Yeah.
the landlord will improve.
Sure, but
After it falls out,
yeah, I would
there's
just,
no cap.
after it's deregulated, but you're not talking about the.
Yeah, but it was a little bit tricky because it
Yeah.
happens in 2019. I'm not sure it was before the Tenants Protection Act,
Yeah.
or it is after that. But unfortunately, and it increased crazy. Yeah.
If I were you, I'd take it to that council and let somebody.
That's
take it.
scary.
I would, because I would.
But
not trust
it
what they
tells
do.
you, but that DHCR
Yeah.
tells you that it is a legal rent. That's very
Okay,
unfortunate.
yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
Wow.
I
That's great.
I think you could you could question it.
Yeah, I think.
I definitely, can I talk? Is it all right? Because what also happened before the new law came in place was that when someone moved out of a rent stabilized apartment, there was something called vacancy decontrol. That was already a 20% bump, just
Right.
before any renovation, whatever. And then these renovations, are they proving that they spent $50,000 to renovate this apartment? The new law, I think, holds them to account a little bit more. But otherwise, I could just see what happened in my own building. And of course, once you break that barrier, if it's $2,500 or whatever it is now, it used to be 2,000. And there was also a caveat that not only did the rent have to break a certain amount, but your income had to be over a certain amount, 100,000, I can't remember what it was. I don't know what happened to that, because I could just see what happens in my building. Once the units are destabilized, they just ask for the market rent, whatever they think they can achieve. And that's it, and they're off to the races.
To my understanding, we all should read the 2019 law. because
Yeah.
It's very significant.
Yeah, there's a lot of research.
It's two things we need to understand is good cause eviction, because that's a really significant legislation passed about a year ago. But the 2019 law changed the issue of rent stabilization. That's why I said, let's look at the 2019. We should no longer see rent stabilized apartments disappearing. My understanding of that law is you no longer can decontrol them. It's gone, that issue is gone. It doesn't matter what the rent goes up to. But there is no longer the ability of the landlord to take the apartment back.
The rent increase.
The rent increases, but they can't, and they can't look at your, they can't get your income, right? It used to be that they could get your
Oh, no.
income, every year, right? That's gone. So that freezes basically the loss of rent stabilized apartments. So that's a general point, huh?
Theoretically.
Well, they can drive you insane, but that's another issue.
Well, I don't wanna get
I
too
don't
off
wanna get into
topic.
that. I wanna
Yeah.
go back to the
I wa-
421 and the
yes.
1051.
Yeah,
But
if
I
we
just
can,
want- Yeah, I wanna get back to, because what we're saying in our district is, what are we doing here, right? We're trying to figure out what is affordable, where are the affordable apartments?
Mhm.
And so we have to find affordable apartments in quote, rent stabilized apartments. I was totally thrown off when I realized, first of all, that there's $5,000 rent, but that aside, that they were putting the 421 As and the J51s in that. So I thought traditional rent stabilized, that's not the case, right? It's something else that's in that basket. Again, my assumption is that if it's like the 421As, they can go up to that issue of up to 165% of the AMI, right? That's considered, on the 421A, dependent, acceptable as a middle income, as a middle class.
Well, I think we're still getting a little off topic.
No, because I wanna know, let me finish, which is, if we wanna look at affordable apartments in our district, and we took Peter Cooper as the example,
Mhm.
what we're finding out is it doesn't look so affordable, so if we take a deep look at the data, what do we actually, I got very confused about, what is it we wanna take a look at? That's what.
And I think we can turn back to Stephen Shuya to kind of talk about sort of the conclusions that you guys have reached from this and the next steps that you anticipate are needed, right? And something that I mentioned via email is sort of, how do we convey this information? How do we share it so that it's something that we can share with the other members of the community board and also so that we can start making some actionable changes
And work with other community boards on it.
and work with other community boards who may so choose to work on this, yeah.
So my preliminary thought is that we need to compare this building data with the demographics data and to see the people's economical status and to see like how much money people the salary increase, the income increase or the income decrease, and also the distribution of the different income and salaries, and with the distribution of the buildings, and to see.
And do we know what percentage of the total number of buildings or total number of units is represented as a whole for the community district? Do we know that, right, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, what is the total number of units and total number of buildings that we have in our community district? We know that information, and do we know what percentage of that total is rent stabilized or rent regulated here?
Yep, that's what that number is.
That's the number.
Yep, CB6 has 22%. That's we have total units, 102,409.
Gotcha.
22,000 are rents, 529 are rents, so 22% are rent
Is that-
stable.
So less than,
That 421A and J51, was that taken out?
No, because those buildings, if they have rent stabilized units, they
Yeah.
count.
They,
They count
Right.
because the
Yeah.
unit can be rent stabilized even if it's in 421.
and that total number of units is as of.
And I'm just assuming they're permanently rent stabilized. That's why they're in the data set.
421A, not permanently rent stabilized, right? It's a time limit.
Well,
J51.
Sometimes it depends, but also because we're collecting, this is current data.
Yeah.
It means they are now,
As of,
Okay,
right.
so they are.
Comfortable with using the high rent, some of these 421As are gonna be high rent. In that, are we comfortable including that? It's just really.
I would simply state.
Huh?
I mean, because they do have rent controls and their rent would increase. It's because it's not market rate, it would be tied into.
I mean, I would just
Whatever
want to
rent.
know,
So to give you an idea, 4.5% of the rent stabilized units are 421A of all of these.
So it's not worth getting.
So I don't know, do you care if it's a 5-4%?
That's.
Is that
That gets it.
we can take them out if you want, but
I think it's important information.
Did I misread? I was a little surprised that, what was it? Was it 5% or 1/2 of 1% that's public housing in our district?
We have very few.
We don't have-
public
Yeah,
housing.
1/2
So,
of 1%.
We have very few.
there are 547 units of public housing. There are only 4 BBL codes.
So it's across 4.
2 are Strauss houses, one
Right.
is a different name, I don't remember.
Yeah, adjacent, yeah.
And then another one, I actually don't know if it's technically public housing, but I think it belongs to NYU Dental School, and that's where like dental students live.
Oh,
I think. But it's technically owned by NYCHA. So somehow there was an arrangement, but anyway, that's included in that 547 units of public housing that we have.
Yeah.
Very few. Confused by what you said. You said it was 4% was 421A, but in your data where you take out the 421As, it's a huge difference.
No, this has everything.
It includes
What you're
the
looking at
14.
here is everything.
But when you did that line there where it's 11,141.
That's Storytown.
Yeah, right, I understand that. Oh, right, you're just looking at,
That's,
okay, and you, okay, I got myself.
okay.
Sorry.
I think this is great. I mean, I've learned a lot just in this conversation this evening. I think it's important to think about sort of next steps and what other research might be needed or how to convey this more broad. And as you mentioned, Sandra, how if there are community boards that would want to work on this.
Well, CBC.
I mean, I don't want to do the work for community board 7.
I just want them.
They said they're gonna try to rustle up some people to try to do it, but,
Yeah.
you know, now that we kind of have like a tried and true way of doing it, I think that we really have to.
I want to go back to, Shruti, your point of, the getting census data and getting the demographics, I think would be very helpful, here. Even in, so we can understand what we're looking at in terms of who's here in the community, who needs to be meeting. I'm gonna take a little bit of that impossible, thank you very much, article you sent. Yeah, it was a very difficult article about what happened in Peter Cooper, but what they did say was the demographics have changed tremendously and there aren't a lot of kids anymore. It's not families anymore. It's unrelated individuals living together. That tells you a great deal about the unaffordability of it, right? So although we may promote Peter Cooper as a model for middle class, it ain't middle class
It's very
anymore,
nostalgic. yeah.
right? So I think that the demographics would be very significant in helping us understand what we're trying to attain in
Right.
affordability,
Right,
right? And so I would go in that.
yeah,
To make it simple, I would just say like half of all of our subsidized housing or rent stabilized housing is Storytown and Peter Cooper Village.
2 places.
So can we just ask them for the demographics of
Oh,
that?
it is on
That'd be great.
a Department of Planning's website. And also the open data NYC also has lots of data. It is very easy.
it probably
to find
has its own
on the
census
website.
tract
Yeah,
too. I'm sure
it is very, yeah, it is
Okay.
very easy
So
to
that
find.
would be a good proxy, rather than trying to like match every BBL with,
Right.
I mean, it's gonna turn up with the same
Right,
information.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
so-
Yeah, I think that's definitely important information.
So just take Peter Cooper, Stuytown as our sort of representative.
Let's see what it
I think
looks
it'd be
like,
great.
do that first. It's
Okay,
easy.
great, yeah, so that sounds like a great next step.
Yeah.
And we don't need to, we don't need to only focus on Stuytown and Peter Cooper Village, because those demographics data is based on census tract, and so we can process it together, and we can focus on several samples and to see what we.
I mean, if there's, you know, like a lot of these buildings that you've identified are gonna be on census tracts that have some market rate buildings, right? So I'm not really sure how you'd be able to sort of convey and make the connection between the demographic data that you find and related to the number of like affordable units that we have, but I think what we're saying is that the definitive that we would know for sure would be Peter Cooper and
Oh,
Stuytown, because they are probably represented by their own census tract and their own
Yeah.
census data.
Yeah.
And so I
Yes,
think
yes.
it'd be really easy, at least initially, to reach a conclusion that way and then branch off from there.
And if we could take a look also at what the rents look like, right? And then who is it really being marketed to? And what we really mean by affordability, right? I think we raise those issues
Yeah,
in a really good way.
yeah,
Could I just make one point?
Sure.
That I've noticed again from my own building,
sure.
that, the new people that move in, they're young and they have co-signers. So that their income is not the best indication of who's can afford the rent.
It's a really
Because
good point.
in my building, they want your income to be 40 times the rent.
Mhm,
And, these are starting out people,
mhm.
so they have cosigners. So it's a little misleading.
I think that's where historical data might come in handy, or even thinking of other ways in which you could sort of
Yes,
think
and
about the methodologies in order to reach conclusions that
Okay.
reflect that accurately.
so Stuytown and Peter Cooper Village has a certain amount of NYU students and maybe students from Pratt or Cooper Uni, because it is very close to the campus. And but it is only a very small percentage, and lots of people, it is it still has lots of long-term residents and people who have already worked. The students only account for a small proportion of this. But it's a very good point.
Yeah, I think that this requires a little bit of
Yeah,
maybe thinking about how to think about this data. Yes.
And the other, so as a kind of going through all this, the numbers are very interesting, you know, it's like we could write a report, but like
Sure.
the other question that I have is like, how are we gonna use this
That's
for
great.
advocacy?
Yes.
Okay, this will tell you what we have, what do we want?
Right,
What type of housing do we want?
right.
And where do we want to put it? And who's it for?
Yeah.
That is the question that none of this data is gonna tell us, right? We have to decide,
Right.
what do we wanna build?
yeah, I just want to piggybacking on Steve's point. So we want to use this research to see our potential. And the Stuytown and Peter Cooper Village doesn't have too much potential because it has no space for new units and
Debatable, I mean.
So we'll go back to the point, but then what do we want? You know, what's there's development, right? I mean, we know there's not a whole lot of room for development. But in terms of what time, when we get the chance to develop and so on, who are we developing it for, right? So it seems to me that the census data will give us an idea of, that's why I got stuck on Peter Cooper, is it was developed for middle class, and my guess is it's not middle class anymore, right? And, but we need to have that data to say, we need to be very careful in defining what we mean by affordability and what we're willing to promote and advocate for when these proposals come up. So we're speaking from, here's what looks like affordable housing, but here's what we found when we actually looked at the census data. And they're not matching in the way that we would hope, because it doesn't, we know it's not gonna look like the median income of renters in the city. But if that's where we're coming from, then now we need the data to prove it. And that's why I think of Peter Cooper's Stuytown, because everybody thinks of it as middle class housing. So that's where what I would think about, but that's fine.
I want to point to Liz because she has her hand up online.
Oh, yeah. So I was just, just thinking about like the last question we were talking about, what does this data really tell us, or that we don't know what we want? I'm guessing what we could potentially do is just look to see what our orders of priorities would be, and at least be able to like rank those of like what kind of housing or what kind of thing is more important to help us maybe reach our longer term goals. So then that way, if there's ever any like proposals or resolutions or project proposals that we need to review, we can at least map that against what we think our needs are or what meets our needs the best, depending on what comes down to across our table, across our desk later on down the line.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Yes, James.
So based on what you were saying, or I think both of you, the number of stabilized units is dropping. And can we sort of predict in the future that eventually they'll just be gone? I mean, it's sort of a call to action to know that eventually these types of units won't exist anymore
You're saying project out.
in the future, like
Yeah.
as these continue to drop, as landlords fix them up enough to
Right.
take them off that roster, will there eventually be 0 units available in the city that are stabilized?
Well, I'm not sure, because as I mentioned, the historical data went from 2007 to 2017, and now we're looking at 2025. But there was that law in 2019. So I don't have a good enough, and I haven't read the law. So I don't know, did that put a stop? Maybe we lost a bunch from 2007 to 2017.
Right.
And
We're
and now in 2019, we're in a different world
We
where
weren't
it's
leading
much
edge.
harder.
Right,
Yeah.
It's a good question.
That I
How
don't know.
extent have things slowed?
Or how are people circumnavigating
Yeah,
that 20?
or are they finding enough loopholes
Right.
still that they
It's
can
always a.
Right.
get around it? I don't know.
Right.
Well, it was
That's-
truly egregious, there might be
If it's a
funds,
city,
but it was, you
But
know,
it's a great point.
bloodbath during Bloomberg.
But to answer your question, it's hard to project just because we don't know what conditions are in the like housing to predict.
What we do
But-
know is there's a huge amount of warehousing going on in these rent stabilized. And it's not clear why, but, and I don't know what it is in our neighborhood.
Can we tell what the number of total warehoused units are?
No, you know,
from this data?
the city did a big project on this and we really would I can contact the.
Yeah.
Response to me.
So
And ask them what their findings were. Their findings were then contested, oh, it's much less than you think. But I don't know, and I don't know how they got the data.
Well, I can imagine if you take, for example, a building which claims that they only have 4 or 5 stabilized units left, and they want to sell it, and they know that a buyer would be disinterested on taking on a stabilized tenant, they'll warehouse it, they'll get rid of somebody and they won't re-rent it.
Right.
Oh, here's my other question, because this is something I noticed in the data. When I was looking at specific BBL numbers and figuring out what is going on. Some buildings just disappeared completely because they were, I don't know, I guess the whole thing was redeveloped, right? So what if they raise a building? Are they required to put rent stabilized units back?
That's a great question,
Or,
because
because it was like, there were building,
we had 3.
the rows were like,
Five
it was like
boroughs.
50 units and then it was negative 50, like
Mhm.
all of
You
them
had-
were gone.
You had
Zero.
tenements combining.
Yeah.
So on my block alone, there are 2 that were 6 and 8, and it's now 22 stories. So historically, what's that look like? How has that been treated?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'll go home and look for that.
Yeah, so it could be it could be the case that somebody's just buying up old buildings, knocking them all down,
Right.
putting all luxury housing and
Right.
that therefore you've lost a bunch of rent stabilized housing, right? And-
How do you relocate the tenants? I mean, how do you get possession? It's not easy.
Well,
Yeah, I don't
My
know.
understanding.
A lot of times they'll buy people out.
Yeah,
Or force them out.
There's
Or-
a case
yeah.
that if even if there's one rent stabilized in the building, you can't dispossess them. I don't know the law on that, but.
I don't know when that law was enacted. I don't know the specifics behind
Yeah, I
that
don't
law, but
know.
I have heard that
Yeah, I
it's
think.
true, but
You
as,
can offer tenants money.
but, right, but
Yeah.
to Brian's point,
Yeah.
and to what we kind of said before,
Yeah.
there are ways in which you can circumnavigate these laws. Right, and that's not true just for like this one, but it's true for for a lot of laws that exist out there.
You
And
know,
so there are ways in which you could probably buy somebody out or find some other method to sort of.
Right.
I mean, it's just in the data, you can see it, it was like 12 units
I'll
and
tell
that
you a story.
BBL code doesn't even exist anymore,
Right.
because it's gone.
So then
you
it's a
know?
new BBL,
Yeah,
it's merged
so,
with
yeah.
other lots, right, exactly.
But I think the point it was what it got attractive.
Where-
Is it going down? And I think that's a great
Mm-hmm.
question, right? I don't know if we could do it from, it would be really helpful to know if in fact, somehow rent stabilization.
I mean, I guess it'd be kind of hard to project because we'd need to know just sort of the rate at which they're disappearing and then I guess the incoming or project, I guess, the rate of new market rate
But I would
units.
separate that out because it's a really important point that many people made, especially during the Bloomberg years, that you can't possibly build enough depending on how quickly you're losing, everybody believed, no, actually stop the bleeding. And so if we can say, here's the rate, that can influence,
Mhm.
what people are trying to build.
And policy.
Yeah.
So, great. 2 issues. One is about the census data to get an idea of what the community looks like that we want to protect. Right, and then the other one is, the loss, right, this, it seems they're 2 separate issues, but at least that's on here, and they're both important,
Right,
but does that sound?
Yeah,
reasonable?
no, I-
And 2 different directions.
I
2
agree.
directions to go in.
No, I think you're right, and I think these are definitely things that we should think about and continue exploring. Yeah, I mean, I want us to, we've been talking about this for a while, and I want us to continue moving along, but there are definitely a lot of next steps that I think we should really explore and think about sort of, to your point, Steve, sort of what we're trying to ask for and advocate for as we continue to move along. And I think we can easily pass resolutions that sort of hone in on this, right? And I don't think we need to wait for a new development to spur up for us to react to it, I think we can be really proactive about the requests that we need to make going forward. So, thank you guys again. This was really great.
Says for a little group, do we wanna look at some census data, relative to, Peter Cooper Town or no?
I can do that.
Oh, bless you.
It won't take a long time, so.
That would be terrific, and that would really.
She actually just did it right now. So this meeting. With the way you guys work, I wouldn't be surprised. You guys are fast.
And then I can clean this up a bit, cause this wasn't really ready to be shown, but we thought, okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
We found all the numbers, so.
Yeah, no, this
We
is
can
good.
clean it up a little bit and like make it more like a
Yeah.
PowerPoint.
And then what do we do with the other part of this, of what the concerns that we actually want to then address, promote in this area? Does the little group wanna do it to other people, you know?
I think what would make sense is sort of if your little group has some maybe action items, if you will, and sort of reach conclusions based on this data and sort of say, cause I mean, I don't wanna assume things because I haven't really dealt with the data as much as you guys have, and I think you're probably more equipped to sort of tell us, and we'll trust your conclusions based on what you've researched, and I think from there we can really start to think about ways in which we can advocate for that, maybe at next month or the month, or the meeting after that, sort of what we want.
Yeah.
We can do it in the form of a resolution, and then when fall comes in the form of budget requests, because we're gonna have to talk about that before the end of or I guess before summer break.
Okay. We'll forget about the rest of the category, there are many other categories. But I think if Shreya doesn't have dinner a couple times, she can. Okay, so should we do that, have a meeting like in a week or so, or whenever? Does that sound good for you guys? To discuss how
Yeah.
how we'll move forward? Okay, Liz, yes? Okay, we'll do it.
Sounds
Okay.
great. Great. Thank you guys again. This was great. I learned so much tonight in this conversation, so I really appreciate it. This is fantastic. Thanks again. Okay. So moving on, the chair's report. So, yesterday Brian shared with myself and Sandra, as well as the chair and vice chair of the Land Use and Waterfront Committee. The city is going to solicit comments to the recently passed charter amendment that we voted on in November. So the city has proposed a charter amendment. It is to establish a new section, section 197F. And this charter amendment is to fast track affordable housing. Now, I will preface this by saying that I have not read the materials that we received because we received it yesterday evening. And the comment period closes on April 1st. So there's a month and a half in order for us as individuals to submit comment. However, if we as a community board want to submit a comment together, we would need to pass a resolution as a committee, because then it would have to be voted on at next month's full board in March in order for the community board to submit testimony by the April 1st deadline. Having said that, which I think is a great idea, I think it's important to be unified as a community board, and then of course we still have the ability to submit testimony ourselves. Brian can pull up the material that he shared with us yesterday, so we can all just peruse it, but what I think we can do this evening is draft this resolution that says we reserve the right as a community board to submit testimony. And then I think when we vote on it at next month's full board, we can work together throughout the rest of the month to finalize this testimony that we think would be appropriate to reflect our feelings as a committee and as a full board. So that's my feelings. I'm not sure how everyone else feels. I think that it's important to share the the high level, if you will, overview of sort of what this charter amendment will propose. But this is a great opportunity for individuals, because this was passed, right? The voters voted on this. There's going to be a charter amendment. They're soliciting comments to the proposed text of the amendment. So I think it allows us a really great opportunity to submit testimony, to submit comment rather, on what we want to see included in this charter amendment. Is that accurate, Brian? Does that sum up
Yeah,
everything?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. So yeah, so I think if the committee agrees, I think we can quickly draft maybe a short reso, or even vote tonight on voting on a reso that we would eventually vote on at the full board meeting, so that way we can submit testimony.
And the resolution says that we want to have the right to comment on it,
Exactly.
not be shut out.
Exactly. The reso won't bind our comment. I think what we would do, and this is something that we can probably talk about maybe more next month, is we can work on the exact language of the comment that we would like, but in order for us as a community board to submit comments, we should pass a resolution.
Wait, what is the resolution saying though?
We haven't drafted. I mean, we haven't, we can do so right now. I'm thinking it would be like a really short 2 whereas clause reso that says, community board 6 is in receipt of this notice to submit testimony, whereas we reserve the right to submit testimony as a community board by the April 1st deadline, therefore, blah, blah, blah. We can workshop it, of course, but
Yeah,
But we
but
don't need it.
read this amendment.
I'm sorry?
I mean, we haven't read this amendment, we have no idea what it is.
Right, but we're not passing a resolution for our position on the proposed charter amendment. The resolution would just be for the community board to submit comments
Oh.
on the charter revision.
But we don't
Oh.
need a resolution for that.
Sandy, apparently we do, right, Brian? I mean, I don't think we need them as individuals if we want to do it in our own capacity, but if we want to do it as a community board, that's something that we would have to do, right?
yeah, so the board
Or is it best
speaks
practice?
through resolutions. So if you want to submit as a community board feedback on the proposed rule, then we would need to have a resolution. So that,
Correct, but my point is a blank resolution doesn't serve any purpose, so we actually need to say what it is that we're saying as a
Yeah.
community board.
Now,
Because
I'm confused.
we don't really need to say we're going to submit. We don't need to put out a resolution saying we will submit.
Are we trying to buy time, like
Yeah.
to give ourselves more time to?
Well,
to put our
well, let me
thoughts?
ask you this. Could we just pass it out of the next exec board meeting, or would it have to go?
well,
through
the
full
way,
board? Is that, you don't have that
the
step.
timing wouldn't work for exec to pass a resolution because,
Cause it's after full board.
yeah, it's at the full board.
Now that
Now,
resolution
you can certainly pass a resolution saying, we would like more time to comment.
So, but if we, as a community board, wanted to submit comment, we don't need to pass a resolution to submit the comment. The resolution would bind our comments, is kind of what you were saying before, right? And I personally don't think that we're in a position to really comment on this because nobody's seen it.
Exactly, so it doesn't work. I mean, that's what, I think you can't simply get out of the fact that we don't know what we wanna say by
Right.
saying. That doesn't get you anywhere, because then. We can't just say we're going to pass a resolution, then write something offline and somebody's gonna submit it and say, well, I was covered by the community board
Okay.
saying we were gonna.
Okay,
That doesn't work.
so I think I probably misunderstood the procedure then before.
I mean, it is possible, for a resolution to be brought from the floor at full board. That's.
Yes.
Option, which I.
Okay.
Don't think I mentioned to you, but,
Which would have our comments in it, that was to be read and put together a proposal.
Basically, it would be something that came at full board without a committee having passed it,
Right.
so it's
Oh,
unusual.
interesting. Okay, so I guess that's an option too that I didn't realize was on the
yeah,
table.
sorry, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, I didn't
just now,
even,
but-
okay, so what you're saying, Brian, is that we could draft a reso and introduce it at full board,
Prior to full board,
Prior
you would
to-
send it out.
prior to full board, excuse me,
Yeah.
prior to full board, in which the full board would then vote on that reso that would bind our comments to. I think that makes sense.
That makes a lot more
I think
sense.
that makes a lot more sense. Thank you, Steve. I really-
Another item, there's
It's like
there's not
science
a
is
lot of,
fitting.
there's not a lot of time between now and land use, but the land use committee could also consider this.
Yeah, and I mean, they meet on Monday.
Because it's time sensitive, it doesn't need to be sent to the land use committee 3 days in advance.
So what should we be familiarizing ourselves with?
It's a great question.
And then perhaps we could zoom in and participate in a discussion between our two committee groups and pass something out next Monday. Because I feel wholly unprepared, apart from what.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I haven't read it either. And then the land use committee meets this coming Monday. Right, Brian, so I don't even know if
If they
they're,
have also a large agenda, I don't know that we
Well, I
want to
mean,
add this to
and
their agenda.
you also heard last night,
We
Gabe
call
didn't
it
really
their
bring this up
agenda.
either, so I don't even think it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do they have a lot of items? I don't know.
I
23rd.
mean, we can look at their agenda right now,
I mean, he could always
Some
bring it up in his
items, I
chair's
wouldn't-
report too, that's what I did tonight,
I wouldn't say that it's a long
but I don't know if they're,
agenda
There's any
necessarily,
indication.
but also, I don't know how much time
Okay.
they're planning to spend on each agenda
Yeah,
topic.
Right,
I mean,
right.
you can ask Gabe if
Okay.
there's room for it. That's another option.
Okay.
To get a committee to pass it before it goes to full board.
okay,
Doesn't have to be our committee,
okay.
Yeah.
That involves reading it before.
but you have to do it by Monday and write a resolution.
Yeah.
So-
Something I
they
haven't
have-
read. I'm probably free tomorrow night.
They have 6
Um,
items on their agenda, but they are discussing the Manhattan Plan, which is,
Gonna take some time.
yeah, it's not a.
I mean, just off the top of my head, the thing that I would be most interested in contributing is some sort of forcing mechanism around implementation. Because right now in my work with the racial equity folks, we're still kind of circling from, we had a lawsuit against Eric Adams because he didn't actually put the racial equity plan, which was likewise voted and is in the charter, into effect. So I worry about any of these things that the people have voted on, and how do you put teeth behind whether or not it's a timetable or an annual look at.
Yeah, I mean,
things, but-
we have to read cause I know it's about affordable housing fast track, but I still have to read about that. I don't even know what they're being proposed.
I mean,
or what
even
the charter
wonder,
amendment is
off the top of my
proposing.
head, we know that every June, whatever, the rent control board meets and whatever.
Mhm.
Imagine if not only was it this like, you know, barbarian at the gates thing, but also a check-in about construction.
Yeah, I mean,
and so
we,
forth.
I have to read what they're proposing in the charter amendment. I just really don't.
What they're, well, the charter amendment that was voted on, that now essentially the city has to implement it.
And what they,
So-
the thing that we received was the proposed text to add the new section.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I
briefly, it says under section 197F of the charter, every 5 years, beginning no later than October 1st, 2026, the director of the Department of City Planning must identify the 12 community districts that during the preceding 5 years had the lowest rate of affordable housing development based on the total number of new affordable dwelling units in the community district as a percentage of the total number of housing units located in that community district at the start of each 5-year period.
Okay. Yeah,
So
this is.
now what they have to do. The city planning commission has to, in consultation with the commissioner of HPD. They have to develop a methodology for determining the total number of affordable housing units in each community district. And it's this methodology that will be used to calculate the rate of affordable housing development.
And that's the calculation that they're proposing there.
I think we
methodology is
still
something.
have a vacancy for the city planner,
What do you mean?
Dan Garavnik.
No, he's still there.
Well, I guess he's tying everything up. But he's-
No, I think he'll be there until there's a new appointee.
Really?
Yeah, he's still there.
Last week he said he was finishing it, but
No.
Yeah.
It's ambiguous, I guess.
I mean, I'd be happy if he stayed on. What I'm saying is it'd be bad if there were a vacancy, like.
No, I believe he's still there until there's a new city planning appointee, which is probably not helping with the urgency of the position, but. Okay, yeah, I think, all right. So I misunderstood before, so we can't. Or rather, it's pointless to propose a resolution that says we're gonna like submit something. The reso that we would vote on and pass would speak to our comments on the proposed text, which I am not entirely, I can't do this evening, and I don't think anybody can do this evening. So let's table that, and then we
Yeah.
can take this offline, I think.
The other thing that I said before was, you know, you could pass a resolution that simply says, we'd like more time to evaluate this. I mean,
Or somebody could draft a reso for Monday's land use committee and bring it up there.
Didn't what you just read, Brian, say that they don't have a methodology yet, and that's their first step is to
You-
create a methodology?
You'd have to read,
yeah,
this
so
is like the primer, but this is not.
they have this calculation here, but in order to adopt a
There's no
methodology
later
for
than
determining the total number of housing units at the start of each year, 5 years, of each 5-year cycle. You know, that's what they
But
essentially.
maybe the proposed text dives into it a little bit more, right? It's a little further down in the document, right, Brian?
But it doesn't, it won't, because it says they haven't come up with it. It will not, they have not defined what is affordable. That's the methodology that they're saying they will come up with.
Well, I see one thing we comment on.
Yeah.
What are the facts? What is the date for the hearing?
So
April something?
April 1st is the deadline.
April 1st is the deadline to submit testimony, and we can all do so,
Yeah.
right? We don't need to do so as a community board, we all can do so in our own individual capacity. But, and I think the hearing is also the same day too, right, Brian, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. It's- Your hearing itself,
April Fools was
is-
about to say,
April 1st at 10 AM
okay,
at City Planning.
okay. All right, so let's circulate this around. Then I guess we can reconvene offline and discuss how to proceed.
And actually, another thing that I haven't mentioned, but it's also, you know, it'd be difficult to do logistically, but if the committee were able to find a time to meet, we'd have a special meeting, do that too. So. that-
Yeah, let's see what happens on Monday. There's a lot of meetings.
So full board then.
Yeah.
From the floor.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, that's.
It would be nice, if it's possible, if part of our contribution was the work you've been doing.
Mhm.
So even if, you know, it's not exhaustive, it's just a piece of it, whether or not it's the headline, we've lost 40%, blah, blah, blah. But I would love it if the research found its way into this resolution.
Yeah.
Cause then we're also modeling for other community boards, doing all that good stuff.
So I think first step we can work together collaboratively to draft the reso, maybe even something that we can bring up at the land use committee meeting on Monday, or test, we could test the waters, see what their thoughts are. And then worst case scenario is that we have a reso ready to go for full board in March, where we would bring it up from the board, send ahead of time in which we can bring it up. Okay, so there are ways in which we can be on the record with a reso that has our comments. Good, all right, great. Well, thank you guys for helping me put out that fire. Thank you, Brian. That was the only thing that I had for the chair's report, old new business, none to other members of the committee. No, seeing none. That's it. The meeting is adjourned at 8:02 PM. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.